Affirmative action in education is supposed to help some minorities that have been historically disadvantaged by giving preference to them, but it can have unintentional consequences. Affirmative action is an outcome of the 1960s civil rights movement intended to provide equal opportunities for members of minority groups and women in education, according to NCSL.com. Because minorities didn't have equal rights before the civil rights movement, many minorities didn't have good educational opportunities. Affirmative action was a success at the time and increased rates of minorities that attended college. Society has changed greatly since 1961 and a lot of institutional racism was removed. Therefore, the need for affirmative action has come into question. One big issue is that affirmative action isn't helpful to all minorities. For example, Asian Americans are discriminated against due to affirmative action. According to a research, being Asian is comparable to a loss of 50 SAT points, according to CNN.com. How is this fair? Why is there a double standard? You can't favor one group without rejecting members of another group. Today, it clearly isn't right to judge people by different standards due to their race, so why are colleges allowed to do this? Although justifiable when it was needed and passed in 1961, affirmative action is arguably a form of discrimination today, which is a huge problem and needs to be changed. Affirmative action helps minorities get into colleges, but there are ramifications if someone gets accepted into a college he or she might not be prepared for. This can be detrimental to someone's educational career. If a person isn't prepared, he or she will lose both money and time and won't get anything out of their experience. Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas wrote in one of his opinions that the law school tantalizes unprepared students with the promise of a University of Michigan degree and all of the other opportunities that it offers. These overmatched students take the bait, only to find out that they cannot succeed in the cauldron of competition. And this mismatch crisis is not restricted to elite institutions. Justice Thomas's opinion was accessed from Cornell.edu. Affirmative action also essentially victimizes certain minorities. It is saying that some minorities need help to get into colleges and would have trouble by themselves. This victimization can hurt people's psychological states, especially if they believe they haven't earned a spot in a college. Gail Harriott, a professor of law and former member of the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights, wrote on the nationalaffairs.com, affirmative action casts a pall of illegitimacy over beneficiaries' legitimate achievements. With all these negative aspects of affirmative action, there needs to be a change. Affirmative action benefits some people that don't actually need it at the expense of others who may need it more. Not all minorities are in need of the boost that affirmative action provides. In any minority group, there are some who are affluent, which means that they have more access to resources than others. They will have a better education than others in their minority group and don't need as much of a boost. But because affirmative action is focused on race rather than on socioeconomics, minorities that have a higher socioeconomic status are more likely to benefit over minorities with a lower socioeconomic status in the same group. This means that minorities who really need the benefits that affirmative action offers may not get them. Another issue with affirmative action is that it is all too easy for people to pretend to be another race in order to receive benefits. One famous example was when VJ, an Indian American student, pretended to be an African American in order to get into medical school. With a simple haircut, name change, and a spot in the University of Chicago's Organization of Black Students, VJ became JoJo. VJ got this idea first when he found out that an Indian with his credentials had a low probability of getting into medical school, but according to what he has written on the New York Times, African American or Hispanic applicants had as much as a 30 to 40% better chance of acceptance. Knowing this, VJ applied as JoJo, who is an African American, and received admission into medical school. After his experiences, VJ decided to come clean. If VJ could exploit this easily, then others must be able to as well. Affirmative action doesn't necessarily help minorities that need its benefits. Therefore, it needs to undergo revision so that people of lower socioeconomic status that are in need of help can receive help. Affirmative action needs to be improved by considering socioeconomic status instead of race so that the problems that it presents can be solved. This way, affirmative action won't be discriminatory. The application process into colleges will be more balanced and give more opportunities to people with a lower socioeconomic status. These are the people that need help from affirmative action most. By considering socioeconomics instead, students who have less resources will be given more consideration to create a more fair playing field. This new form of affirmative action will also eliminate the victimization of minorities. Currently, affirmative action is implying that minorities need help to get into colleges and can't do it by themselves. Quoted in an article from TheEconomist.com, Justice Roberts wrote, "The way to stop discrimination on the basis of race is to stop discriminating on the basis of race." By revising affirmative action to consider socioeconomics, victimization won't happen anymore. Minorities won't be put through the mental stress of questioning if they earned admission into a college. Then, school admission processes can be more fair. Non-race-based admission policies have worked and shown positive results. For example, in 1996, Texas banned affirmative action. Public universities in Texas began automatically admitting students who had graduated in the top 10% of their high school classes. By 2004, the percentage of Black and Hispanic students enrolled exceeded or equaled the share before the ban, as quoted in an article by TheEconomist.com. By revising affirmative action to consider economic status over race, the discriminatory double standard will be removed and people in need of help will receive it. To sum it up, Martin Luther King Jr. Famously said, "I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character."